All right. Welcome to what I call Dare to Be Vital with Allan Mishra. I'm really excited to reconnect with an old friend and fraternity brother, Bill Vivian. Bill, we're here talking a little bit about how to thrive, not just survive during the coronavirus crisis. But since I know you pretty well, I think I should rather have you kind of go through what your journey's been and what you're doing now, and then jump right into a conversation.
Yeah, sure. So after I left Michigan, enlisted in Marine Corps, went to boot camp, and then was commissioned in December of 1991. And then I was a career infantry officer, so which means I commanded at each level from a platoon of 40 to a regiment of about 4,000 Marines and sailors, and then retired in June of 2018. And then since then, I launched a leadership development company, which is ironically really focused on coaching senior leaders. So that's very quickly, but I'm eager to talk about some of the things with you today.
Great. Thanks again for your time. And I really appreciate it. What we're trying to figure out what to do is a lot of us are isolated right now or sheltering in place. I'm in California, and we are experiencing each of us something different. But help us out with how you are coping or what you're sharing with your friends, family, clients, and colleagues about, again, what I call how to thrive, not just survive during this crisis time.
Right. Yeah. So I always start with self-awareness. I think that's the foundation of leadership, actually. And I think it's probably foundational for something like Dare to Be Vital. And what I really, I've researched quite a bit about the neuroscience of it. When we're faced with uncertainty in particular or a stressful situation, that engages our fight or flight response, right? And so that puts us into the emotional center of our brain, the most primitive part of our brain, which doesn't have the capacity for language, doesn't have the capacity for reasoning. And if we're not aware of ourselves in the moment, that's where we are, it's very difficult to break out of that and then be productive and shift our thinking into our frontal lobe, which is where we want to be, particularly in difficult times like this, so that we can solve problems and so that we can keep ourselves on a even keel, so that we can help and engage with others and all those types of things that are very positive. And so, if we want to think our way out of this, particularly when we're faced with really stressful things, losing our job, sick loved ones, that's the time when you really want to apply your critical thinking and come up with solutions to the problems you face.
So how do you avoid that, what I call a threat response, where you're going to potentially, flee, fight, or fight?
Right.
And I think that's what you must be an expert in. And do you have any stories that we can share from your experience in battle or in the military that you're drawing upon now?
Yeah, I feel really lucky because I came upon this right away when I was a second lieutenant. Soon after I got commissioned, I was at the basic school in 1992, and I marched in the retirement parade for a guy named Colonel John Ripley, who later I realized how famous he was. He was awarded the Navy Cross for actions when he was a captain in the Easter Offensive in Vietnam in 1972. Anyway, one of my buddies who I was marching in the parade with, another second lieutenant, he said, "Hey, my dad and some of his buddies are going to meet at the club later. Would you like to go and hear some of their stories?" And his dad was a colonel at the time on active duty. And I said, "Sure, why not?" So we go to the club. It turned out all these guys were captains in Vietnam in 1972, and they were advisors to the South Vietnamese Marine Corps. Okay. So I was, it was a who's who of heroes.
Yeah.
And the senior Marine at the parade, for the retirement parade that day, was a 3-star general named Walt Boomer. And he had been a major at the time of the Easter Offensive. And I didn't know any of this. Well, General Boomer walked in later while I was talking to this guy, and he pulled me aside and he was like, I would follow that man anywhere, meaning General Boomer. I said, well, why is that? And he said, during the Easter offensive, no matter what was going on and positions were getting overrun and there was just a lot of chaos going on, he said, whenever we talked to him on the radio, it sounded like he just got up from a nap.
Wow.
So calm. And that steadied their nerves, and they all felt when they could talk to him that it was so reassuring. They calmed down, shifted to their critical thinking, and solved the very real and immediate problems that were right in front of them. So what's the takeaway for Bill was, I was like, wow, I really want to be General Boomer. I want people to look at me and say, that guy stays calm under pressure. And, I had some spectacular failures along the way, as we all do. But I dedicated myself to practicing to be that. And it started being calm on the radio, but then when I realized the benefits of it, I practiced it and extended it to everything. And so, I developed a reputation for being calm, being patient, and that really helped the people around me. And I did it by being aware in the moment of where my emotions were. Mm-hmm. And when I was successful with it, I would recognize it in the moment. And that's something that you can practice. Everyone can. And then I would practice calming myself down so that I could shift into that critical thinking mode.
This is a crucial lesson for all of us right now, because we are in a time of massive uncertainty. We don't know how long this COVID-19 crisis is going to last. There are economic issues, there are health issues, there's social isolation issues that can raise your inflammatory markers. So you've experienced that, you've trained yourself, okay, you're obviously an elite leader. Can you boil it down to a couple what I call info stacks of just a couple things? Is it deep breathing? Is it, just kind of checking yourself in the mirror and saying, listen, I know I don't know what's going to happen next, but take a deep breath and think about it. What are Commander Bill Vivian's go-to things for the rest of us who aren't have as much experience as you do?
Yeah. First of all, be alert for opportunities to practice it.
Okay.
So be mindful. Hey, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to look for an opportunity to demonstrate calm.
I love that.
So
wait a minute, I want to repeat that. I'll wake up tomorrow and look for an opportunity to demonstrate calm. That's right. Awesome.
Yeah. So you've got to be, hey, I'm going to practice this, and you can do it. And then, yes, the breathing techniques are, the go-to. In through the nose, pause, and then out through the mouth. So there's a saying, if you can do that 3 times, then you're going to calm yourself down no matter what the situation is. I'm not sure if that's true, but it's a great rule of thumb. And when I'm stressed, my wife, she'll hear me doing that and she'll be like, what's going on? Because she knows from long happenstance. So it's the 3 breath rule: in through the nose, out through the mouth. Right?
It's interesting, Bill, because I wasn't completely convinced of that until a couple of years ago, and there were some studies actually done at Stanford where they looked in animals and they actually found an anatomic connection between the back of your brain, where your breathing center is, and your frontal lobe. Right. And so when that actual physical connection was found, I was like, wow, deep breathing isn't just sort of a psychological experience. You are literally calming your frontal lobe. And so I've done maybe not as well as you have, but I've been practicing that for a couple of years now. And it actually is incredibly helpful if I'm stressed in the middle of the night or thinking too much. I'll do some deep breathing. And then the next morning I'm like, well, how did I put myself back to sleep? Well, I just kind of calmed that fight or flight or, threat mode in my brain enough that I could be calm and relax.
Yeah, and sleep is such a huge deal, right? It's such we call it a combat multiplier, right?
I love that.
Yeah, because being well rested, the quality of your decisions just goes up through the roof, versus when you're stressed and not sleeping well. And so, I learned with some of my combat deployments to Iraq and again in Afghanistan that getting to sleep, and particularly the more senior I got and the decisions got more complex in nature, I had to get my rest.
Yeah.
And so the technique I would use is I would always have a book to read, and usually it was not history or work related, right? It was more for enjoyment. And I would read it, and what I would normally find is, particularly in times of high stress, is I would read it and I'd go 4 or 5 pages and not remember anything I read because my mind was elsewhere. What I developed was the discipline to go back to the beginning of that 4 or 5 page section and start over and purposefully read it and read the words, and it would take, sometimes 2 or 3 times through to do that. But once I did that, I would fall asleep. So it took me forever to get through a book, but that technique worked. And there's other ones like that worked for me, but it's being mindful and getting in the moment and getting your mind focused on something other than your cares and worries so that you can get that sleep.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the classes I teach now at Stanford on Vitality, I have a tagline. I say, consider sleep a superpower.
Right.
And I think that resonates with people. And the other part about it is staying in the now, or being mindful about exactly what you're doing. So that's a really good technique that we should emulate there. Is if you're reading a book, you can gloss over, that 2 or 3 pages, and then you can say, well, I just read those 2 or 3 pages. I don't really remember because I'm thinking about all these other stressful events. Or you can go back, like you suggested, and just mindfully read that, digest it, enjoy it, and be in the moment. And that will calm you down. That's awesome suggestion. Thank you. Yeah. What else would you or your family or your colleagues work on in the next however many weeks or months that we're going to be in this situation? Again, I'm not understanding how long that will be.
Right. Well, I think 2 things come to mind. The first one is, hey, don't forget about your sense of humor.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
Because, there's plenty of studies and my own anecdotal experience. When you can laugh in the face of danger, literally, right, then that calms you down and takes you out of that fight or flight mentality.
Yeah.
Right? So any opportunity you have to exercise your sense of humor, take it, seize it, maybe even create opportunities like that. So I was talking to my youngest brother yesterday, and he's in a management position in a brewery outside of Chicago, and they're consciously creating a humorous video about delivering beer to their customers in these conditions, and they've kind of taken a ripoff of an ice cream truck it's the beer truck, and people hear the bell, grown men, and they're dashing for the door.
I love that.
But, yeah. So, and he and I have talked about leadership constantly over the years, and the bottom line for him is doing that with his employees, kept them loose because they were laughing, and
right.
kept them focused on creative problem solving. That's really what you want to do in times like this. The other big thing that comes to mind is sense of purpose, and you alluded to that this morning. Doing this for you has energized you. I've heard that from more than one of my clients or associates. That's always been my observation, particularly in combat, for example. When you have other people to lead, or if you're doing something to set an example for them, it makes it much easier for the leader, particularly in the moment. And that dynamic extends to all people, right? If you're outwardly focused and you're focused on helping others, then the psychic burden on you seems to be lowered. And there's plenty of research that indicates that's true as well. So don't forget to laugh and find something that gives you a sense of purpose.
Awesome. Bill, this is fantastic. It's something where I think we're going to have to revisit this conversation. And I really appreciate your time today, and that the suggestions that you have given are flat out spectacular. So again, I feel like I'm sort of leveraging my amazing network, and appreciate your time, and look forward to connecting with you again. And I hope you and your family stay safe and healthy.
Yeah, same to you. I'm a big fan of DareToBeVital, so keep it going.
And just one quick thing. Why don't you give a shout out to your consulting company here? I think that's one thing that I'd like to make sure I do with all my guests.
Sure, Freestone Solutions Group. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So for those people who need awesome leadership guidance, go to Freestone Solutions, and we'll see you soon, Bill. Go Blue, by the way.
Yeah, go Blue. Yeah.
Take care, Bill. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.